Range is hot.
Range is hot.
All right. Well, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of the Rock and Roll No Show. And still, no shows. No, I jest, but not really. Welcome back, Colby Brether, my co-host extraordinaire.
Yes, sir. Good to be back.
How was your week?
It's been good.
Yeah. Anything new? Super exciting?
Not really.
Nothing.
No, not at all.
I don't believe you're being honest, but
yeah, I know you're right.
Okay. All right, so ladies and gents, we've got a super cool guest for you on this Rock and Roll No Show. Friend of mine, executive director at Iowa Event Center, C.Y. Stevens for all of you concert fans. Tammy Koolbeck.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. You have all kinds of information that we want to know. So a little bit of background, and then, like I said, Tammy is the executive director over at Iowa Event Center. And are you the current president or vice president with the International Venue Management?
The current past chair of International Association of Venue Managers, or IVM. Okay. And just to note that it's the Iowa State Center, the Iowa Event Center.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
So, so I'm at Stevens, yes.
Yeah,
the Stevens Auditorium. Yeah.
I do it all the time. Yeah. And you're right, the Iowa Event Center, that's the Hy-Vee Hall. Yes. Hi, Andy Anderson. I know you're watching. Anyway, so typically with our guests, what we want to know first off, right? It's what we've been trying to do is people who are in the venue management or the music industry part, and then we have artists come on, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we want to know is a little bit of background, like way back, you know?
Sure.
And tell me like where you got started, why out of all of the careers that you could have picked did you pick the one you have? Like just bring us up to date, but start at the way back.
Well, I am an Iowa girl. Old enough that I played 6-on-6 basketball, awesome. Which has no music reference, but there is a 6-on-6 musical, basketball musical. So, I'm from a small town in southeast Iowa, grew up right on the Mississippi, a town called Montrose. For those of you who might know bigger cities, bigger villages of right between Fort Madison and Keokuk. So, grew up really on the widest part of the Mississippi, and my first concert that I remember going to, if any of you are familiar with Midwest Old Threshers, has been around for a long time in Mount Pleasant. Mm-hmm. Dolly Parton and Porter Wagner.
Awesome.
Actually, with Ferlin Husky that weekend too, I believe. I was big on the wings of a dove. I had the 45. Nice. Yeah, so that's how way back I go.
Awesome.
And so we did a lot of bluegrass festivals growing up. We would go and actually sell buttons. But I went to school in Cedar Rapids at Mount Mercy and got my degree in public relations and English. So that's, and then my first concert at what was then the Five Seasons Center. Again, this will show my age. I'm a big Rick Springfield fan. So awesome. My first concert as an adult where I actually paid for a ticket would have been Rick Springfield, and he was probably, the first 3 concerts I went to, actually. And then, like maybe others, I'm in the venue management world. I'm a little bit different. I did not start selling popcorn at 16. Mm-hmm. I did not get into this industry until my mid-30s. I did a lot of other things that kind of led me up to working in that building. So when I graduated from college, I did work for a foreign communications firm. I had like 5 jobs in 5 years, and then ended up at the 2 of those jobs were working for the Cedar Rapids Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, in which I then sold the hotel, all the hotels, and the meeting space, which included what was then the Five Seasons Center.
Right.
Then I moved across the hallway and worked for the Cedar Rapids Silver Bullets, which was a CBA, a Continental Basketball Association team, and helped book the entertainment for that. And then I went to work for the hotel, which was then a Stouffer's property, and then became unflagged in 1990. And did hotel work for 5 years in the hotel that was attached to what was then the Five Seasons Center. So, and then one day I was looking to move. I had a 2-year-old, and I was tired of 8 a.m. RevPAR meetings in the hotel business. And I was looking at a couple opportunities, and I went downstairs to talk to a good friend who was the assistant general manager at that point of the Five Seasons Center and the Paramount Theater, and said, I'm really trying to decide if I'm going to go nonprofit. Do I want to go back, to the CVB? And 2 hours later, he called me down and had an offer to become their director of marketing, and that was in October of 2015, October of 1995. And since then, I've been in the venue management industry. Love music, love sports, just everything about it. So I've spent my first 5 years as the marketing director, and then I went over and ran the ice arena for a while, for about 4 years.
Nice.
And then went to work corporately for VenueWorks, which is a private management company that does venues all across the United States. And during that time, had a chance to work 4 Super Bowls. I helped open up. I had friends at FedEx Forum. I had a University of Houston football stadium. So I helped open up a couple buildings.
Right.
And then the opportunity to come off the road. I was on the road probably 220 days a year when this job opened up. So I got to come back into a venue, which at the time was the Sheeman Building, the Fisher Theater, and of course Stevens, which is a jewel in the state of Iowa.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So, the bluegrass festivals.
Mm-hmm.
When you say we, who is we, and how did you get there?
The family. So,
right.
We would go.
So, mom and dad were big bluegrass fans.
They were. Yeah, they were. I mean, I would tell you that my dad was probably a little bit more musical than that side of the family, the Clemenson side, the paternal side. No, he didn't play. He sang.
Awesome.
Actually, yeah. And really sang just church music.
Awesome.
So. I, thinking back, I'm like, because I look at, my dad's passed now, but I look at, when I would have been old enough to, when I was in college and stuff and actually started in this industry, Dad always had records that he would play, big Roger Miller fan.
Awesome.
My mom was more, kind of country music, always had the radio on. But no, nobody played, nobody sang. A town of 600. We had the Watermelon Festival every year where we'd have music and go over and listen. But
nice.
But really, when I think back, I was really kind of doing live music pretty early on.
That's
so
cool.
Back when I didn't care if there was mud and
right.
the toilet didn't flush.
Right. Well, when you say like Old Threshers, I saw. Actually, the only time I've been to Old Threshers, but I'm not from Iowa, so for me to find the Old Threshers, did they call it the reunion?
Old Threshers reunion, yeah.
Okay, so for me to find it to start with was pretty good, and then the event itself. Have you been to it?
No.
It's ancient tractors and farm equipment. Steam-powered, coal-powered, diesel,
right.
Loud threshers is because they're threshing machines,
right.
yeah.
And just,
yeah,
totally cool. And then I got to see Willie Nelson. And when you say mud, like 6 inches of it standing in front of the stage watching Willie Nelson. It was great. And side note, I said, of course, I always want to talk to the sound guy. And I said, hey, aren't you worried about those speakers getting wet? There's old community speakers up there. And he went, nope, they're not mine. I was like, road guy. So.
Yeah, well, that was a family. That was Labor Day every year. I grew up, we would, Mount Pleasant was probably 45 minutes away from where I grew up. And we would pull the camper up to get our spot like the Monday before Old Threshers started on Thursday or Friday. Awesome. And then we had an aunt that would come up and we would all be together for that weekend. So I saw lots and lots of acts when when we were going to Old Threshers. So.
All right. So then, let's see. When you were talking about Cedar Rapids and the venue and the hotel, is that now the U.S. Cellular?
It was, yes. So in 1999, I was part of the group that put together the naming rights deal with U.S. Cellular Center, and it just renamed 3 weeks ago to Alliant Energy Powerhouse.
Okay.
So it's now has its third name, but it's always for me the 5. It's hard to kind of get away from that. So.
For me, like you jump around to different venues, and you're not attached to the venue. You're attached to the artist that you're traveling with, and so
right.
I was like, that sounds like that's what it is.
Right.
Yes.
So, yes.
Which is pretty interesting. The hotel and the venue are kind of the city block.
Yes.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And they share freight elevators, and so when I worked at the hotel, I actually was responsible for booking the guests that played. So I actually rode in the elevator with Alison Krauss before I became, when she opened up for Alan Jackson, I think, and I'm not even sure she sang. She might have sang one song, otherwise she played like 6 fiddle songs.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right?
Well, she can get down to the fiddle, no doubt.
Yeah. So, Boys to Men, So there, I started going to shows, as an adult, probably still kind of work related. So, because I worked for the basketball team before that, and they had a box. So I got to, during the times before I started in the industry, I was going to pretty much every major concert. So Kiss with and without makeup, both times. Then I worked a Kiss show
that was the
with
first
makeup.
Show.
Yeah.
That was the first show I ever saw. My aunt took me to see Kiss in Greensboro Coliseum in 1978.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And that's probably what's wrong with me now. Yep. I just remember like looking around, all of the explosions. Gene Simmons is like hanging off of like some cables, and he's spitting fake blood all over people, and at some point I was like, who is doing all of this, And then you look, and there's some old long-haired ponytail wearing dude sitting at a spaceship, and it was a sound guy, but you don't know that. You're just like, that's the wizard right there. He's doing all of this. And ever since, I was like, one day I'll get around to doing that, So it's a lot of fun, definitely.
Yeah, my first show in the industry when I started working was Fish.
Oh, awesome.
And then within, 5 days later, 10 days later, I did White Zombie and Pantera.
Whew.
So
yeah,
I
that's
got
quite the difference.
Big education on different drugs
right.
for different bands.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I was
this
like,
is cool and mellow. This is a little more aggressive.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah,
no shoes, dreadlocks, dancing around to, definitely metal.
Right, exactly.
We called it the active dancing area as opposed to the mosh pit because that didn't play well in depositions. So.
Oh, yeah. Active dancing
area.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess nowadays you would have to like cover that in like some Visqueen or something, So like
you'd have to wrap the person in Visqueen.
Right.
I think, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things have surely changed.
Yeah.
Okay, so VenueWorks. I'm familiar with VenueWorks. I know a bunch of the folks over there, and y'all know, like, I do some sound over at CY and stuff like that. So that's how we have the connection. But so for VenueWorks as the company, right? How is VenueWorks like holding up, and what is the general game plan at this point, if there is such a thing as a game plan? Like, how are you guys looking forward to the future and continuing to deal with it in a safe operational manner?
Sure. Well, I can speak to VenueWorks as a company, so based in Ames, actually. Steve Peters is the president. he is an Iowa boy too, originally from Sac City. Went to high school in Marshalltown, and then is a University of Iowa graduate. But he was the second executive director at the Iowa State Center, and in the 80s, and actually led that into the private management world. Certainly what we're doing at Stevens, what we started doing right away was, we closed our doors on March 15th. We got in waitress on March 12th, and then we had a dance competition the 13th, 14th, and 15th, and then our doors were closed, as most all venues were across the country. Though I do remember, I think that night, like March 13th, was my last live event before July, when we started having Goldfinch again, and I saw Chad Elliott out at Prairie Moon, and actually was like, the university's closing, but maybe I can come out here and do Goldfinch. And then, within 4 days, everything was closed. So we did open back up in July with dance recitals and competitions with a very robust mitigation process. So we did require, we're on the campus of Iowa State University, so we follow their guidelines as well, and their guidelines have been stricter than Iowa's have been until today, when the governor about an hour ago put in a mask mandate for everyone, at least out in public. So we required masks. We have hand sanitizers coming into the doors. We're disinfecting all of the time. Railings, backstage for the dance competitions, recitals, we put up plexiglass so our staff was safe when you probably saw that, as dancers come in and around. We encourage that if the dancers were going to be masked on stage, that literally they take the mask off on one side and then they put it back on the other. So we were really controlling traffic flow. We went through a number of different ways of figuring out how we were going to run the building. Did we just, at one point we were like, we're just going to keep 2 doors open so that way we can, better clean, better control. Yet, as time has gone on, we've decided that no, we're going to go ahead and open more doors, because that cuts down the line when people waiting in line,
right.
To get in, because we're really trying to, make sure we've got the social distancing, and when people are waiting in line, that becomes harder.
Yeah, that's the funnel.
Because
Definitely.
they start talking to each other. Somebody moves, and then somebody moves within that 6 feet. So, just little things like that we've tweaked along the way. Just as being a venue manager, knowing how our crowds work. So, we are hosting events in September. We did get put back under a capacity. Athletics was under a capacity limit, and so right now we're sitting at 260 for capacity, and in July and August we were at a 50% capacity, so we could have welcomed up to 1,000 people in the building. We didn't, but we could have. So we're on the controlling and trying to mitigate the virus. I think we're doing a great job on that, and the concern that we have really now is keeping our doors open and finding events that are safe enough to put in there, where we are at the smaller capacity, and it's really the making money piece, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we can keep people safe, but the issue is we can't make it all work with just 200 people in the building by the time we put anybody on stage. So we're continuing to work across most of our buildings, and certainly in Ames, we are working with smaller arts organizations that don't have a home or can't fit into their home. So we've successfully done that with actors. We're doing it this weekend with KHOI, bringing their Pantorium sessions on stage. So we continue to look at things that make sense, because for us it's really important. I mean, it's horrible that you have to think about money all the time, but in reality, that's I mean, we have to. We have payroll, we have utilities, we have expenses, and nobody's paying the bills if we don't have revenue. I mean, our donors have stepped up; they've been great, but there's really never enough for a building the size of Stevens. And of course, our concern, like all others, is if we stop doing stuff, what does that mean? It's not great for the community. How do you come back? How do you open something that's been mothballed? That type of thing. So, I was on the phone again with a couple agents today and a promoter, and we're continuing to look to see what we can do safely. We're hoping to get our capacity approved up to 500, which would be very helpful for a couple shows that we're doing, that we want to try to do. But it really is all about keeping the community safe. So
how do you feel about, like, I've had this conversation with a couple of other people, the revenue that's involved, like a lot of concert goers, just they haven't been exposed to it, so they don't understand how many people are fed by their ticket dollar.
Right.
From the bus driver or bus drivers, the lease on the bus, the backline companies, the video company, the sound company, the stage managers, the union roadies, the riggers, everybody involved in this thing. It gets paid, from your ticket dollar, right?
Right.
So, what do you think it looks like in the future? Do you think that it's one of those people will voluntarily accept a higher ticket price to be able to go see a show, to make it work? Or do you think it's going to go the other way, where music is a Spotify kind of thing, and monetarily it's just not that big of a deal anymore?
Oh, I hope that the live experience doesn't go away. I really feel pretty strongly, just knowing how I feel about music, and how I feel about live music, and certainly what I'm seeing from my friends on Facebook. Again, you're with like-minded people usually on Facebook, right? Is that I'm not sure that the live experience will go completely away. I think we're going to find a way to do it, but I think it's going to have to be, I don't know if organic's the right word, but it's going to be a team effort or a village effort, because are you going to be okay with not a wall of LED lights that turns every color under the sun that has visuals to it? Are you going to be okay with mics on a stage and lights? I mean, what kind of experience are you going to pay for? Is it about the music? Is it about the spectacle? Right? So if, for example, U2 is out with 27 trucks, because that's what it takes to build, and they're only building for stadiums, are they going to cut back? Will Taylor Swift go out and do an acoustic tour? Right. We already had, that was the last need to breathe we have, was an acoustic tour. So they did a very cool light set, but it was very simple. I mean, it came in on, one cart, and we hung it up and it fell, and there it was. It was great, right? So you can do a lot with light. But so, because they're going to have to keep their costs down, because we're not going to be at full capacity in any of our arenas. So, one of the things I'm looking at is I'm calling club people, the club agents right now, the club managers, because they probably can't play at Woolies, but could they come up and play at our place? Right? So, but that doesn't do Woolies any good. Right. And, and what I just talked about stage sets and that type of thing, that doesn't do any good for the people that are producing that product right now. Right? So are they going to be able to pivot and find something that they can do, until this gets done? It's just so far reaching. And even when and we're waiting for a vaccine, and, the vaccine could be ready in 2 months, but...
Has there been anybody to test the water, to say, we're going to do a show, we're going to do the show that we normally do, and we're going to do it for 500 people or 250 people, but instead of a $75 ticket, it's a $150 ticket, or it's a $200 ticket for the first 3 rows. Has anybody...
I've not heard that happening. I mean, I think what we're mostly hearing, the drive-in concerts that are happening. Mm-hmm. I was on a call the other day where we were talking, a group of us and the promoter and the talent, and it's like with drive-in concerts, you have to get all of your money out of the car because there are no more ancillaries. Right. So for, you talk about the financial aspects of the revenue aspects of a ticket, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about all those people that get paid out of the ticket, the other people is the venue, right? And there's not a lot of money out of that ticket that's coming to the venue. Right. We're making our money off the ancillaries. Mm-hmm. Most venues do. Parking, which we don't have access to at Stevens, but certainly, major venues make their money off parking and food and beverage. Right. And I mean, that's just it. I mean, you look at the food and beverage side, right? Oh, I mean, we're looking now, everything has to be prepackaged. So, at Stevens, that was never a problem, but you go into some of these arenas and the stadiums, and they're selling, $15 or $20 chef creations that are made fresh. That's going to be gone for a while, right? And so you're selling a bag of cotton candy that's been popped, in New Mexico and sent, wherever wherever it's being popped at, right? Yeah. So there's, so I don't know. I do know that sometimes it feels like we're the, the restaurant industry. I'm not even sure you could say that the hotel industry at this point, but perhaps the hotel industry a little bit. And the restaurant industry, I mean, none of those have still been hit as hard as venues and artists, because they've been able to do carry out, they've been able to sell liquor. Has it been great? No, but they've at least had some form of revenue where we don't have much.
I've tried to explain a couple of times, and I'm an advocate for musicians. Right? And so my entire life I have spent saying, don't charge $4 for your EP, charge $15 for your EP, and stick to your guns and make the $15 because it cost you money to make it. It has value. If you devalue yourself, no one else is going to add value to it. Mm-hmm. And we can buy a $5 cup of Starbucks coffee in the morning, and it's no big deal. It lasts if you take your time, it lasts 20 minutes. Right. You throw the cup in the trash and you never think of that cup of coffee again, right? But people balk at buying a $1.29 single on iTunes, So it for me, I've always tried to push the idea that art has value and you have to equate it monetarily. Right? So for me, I think that artists at this point have to be very vocal about what the industry has lost, because we're talking billions of dollar industry that is crippled, and honestly, I know you are at the top of the game in the business. I've talked to a couple of other people. Our last guest, Jeff Kane, works with Ticketmaster. No one knows what to do. It really is just it's just up in the air. If it's going to come back, it's not going to come back. So I've thought of with some of the larger venues, if the venue itself hosted, I guess, the look at our industry kind of event. You know what I mean? Not so much hey, check out this local artist and this local artist, but look at these people who don't get to eat anymore because their job has been eliminated completely, and doing what we can to on a local level to get some national attention. The Code Red movement sort of thing.
Band lights, yeah.
And just to bring it to light to everyday folks, you know, because like everybody wants to see Dwight Yoakam, you know. I mean, anybody with the right mind, you know. But they have no idea that like that's probably not going to happen anymore unless people actually like get some sort of funding for this, you know. And to completely eliminate politics from it, us as a country, we need to decide if sustaining arts as a country is something that we value, and if we do, we need to do it now, because if we don't, it's going to be way more expensive in the future to bring it back.
Right, and you could say that we were already heading down that path before COVID. No. I mean, arts funding is
schools.
Right. I mean, arts funding has been, defunding of the NEA, the NEH. Certainly, yeah. I mean, arts has been, the STEM movement was great, but it really should be the STEAM movement, because arts is such an important part of any well-developed education, and that's one of the things I love about Iowa State is we have engineers that are people that are coming to school to be engineers in the engineering department, and they are making they're coming and they're still playing their trumpet or they are still music is still a big part of their development, because they understand how art helps them think, even though they're very technical and it's very scientific.
Absolutely. Our producer Nick Griner is he finishing his fourth degree or something?
Something like that.
Accounting, hardcore accounting too, and played snare drum in the marching band, and works at the music department as a recording engineer.
Right.
So like arts, and I think you would agree.
But you're right. I just looked at a study that Brookings Institute did for a presentation I did earlier today. So I'm not going to remember all of the numbers. If I could cheat on my phone, I could probably find it. But the creative economy is taking the biggest hit, and it's like $150 billion hit since March to September. I think the report was written in September. And with that, I think it's 2.5 million jobs within the creative economy. Just the fine and the performing arts, that's about 14. What was my first number? So it's about 14 billion, something like that, and another 14,000 jobs just in that. And I'm not even sure. I mean, and the 14,000 jobs to me seems like that's the Broadway. I mean, that seems like there's a lot more jobs than 14,000, with Broadway closing down. And so 50% of the jobs lost in the country have been in the creative economy that have not come back. So yeah, I mean, it's very, what I was trying to get back to the ticket price issue and asking about, ticket prices will people pay. I think the thing that's hard for me is that my son and I work in the industry, but our extended families do not. So my brothers, my husband's brothers, they don't work in the industry, so they aren't feeling it like we are feeling it in my household. Right. And so they probably do have $200 to spend on a ticket. And so I would hope that they would realize that, kind of the cost goes up. But I think that certainly what we're looking at is that we're not looking at acts that would require us to say, let's just say for Stevens, $100 ticket. Right. We're looking for acts that would only require a $25 to $50 ticket. So we're not even going out to chase. I mean, Dwight Yoakam, for example, would have to come to us and say, hey, we're all hurting. My show's going to be, I'm trying to pay my guys too, my guys and gals. And so let's find this happy medium where, everybody just gets paid. Nobody's making a whole lot of money, but we're paying our expenses. Exactly. Those are really the kind of deals I think that are going to have to be happening. Right. But, I think Chris Stapleton said something, not very long ago, maybe back when, when the Iowa State Fair was canceling, or he was the first, I think, act out of the Iowa State Fair to cancel. And he just said, I laid off 70 people today because I don't have work for them. And and they were integral to my success. Right? Because they were his touring people. They were probably his sound, sound people, his band, each band, the people that carry the guitars and tune up.
Well, that's the thing. Right. It's like a guitar tech doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but every song you do with a different guitar, somebody is back there taking care of that thing. Like, it's their job. It's their livelihood. They take care of Chris Stapleton's guitars. And they have to make enough money to where their family at home can eat. They can pay their mortgage. Because getting on a bus, as much fun as it sounds when you're 15, man, I'm going to get on a bus, I'm going on tour. That's great till you've been on tour for 7 weeks. Then that changes considerably. And especially when you're calling home and it's like, hey, that check bounced. What? Yikes. So, no, I hope that some of the, especially the folks in Nashville, who have seen how hard it has hit Nashville itself, I hope that some of those people will start to make that connection with some of the venues that are venue work size venues, and start reaching out and saying, hey, this is what our break-even point is right now. What do you need for a break-even point? And start figuring out those numbers, because I can assure you, like, I'm driving a truck now, and the studio is, let's say it's not as active as it has been in the past. The people that I am on the road with and talking to every day, they're not in the music business. And what they say is, oh man, that show I wanted to see got canceled. This got canceled, that got canceled. And they want to blow off some steam. They want to go out and have a good time and see a band and relax. And it seems to me that I know I would, and I feel like several of the people I discussed would be willing to pay that extra ticket price just so they can have some sense of normalcy again.
Right.
So I hope that.
Well, and that's the other thing. That. You've been on the road, so life on the road. You're all in a bus, and you're in a bus for 8 hours till your next stop, or 4 hours, right? Yeah. Typically it's a 400-mile radius, right? So, I think that a lot of the touring acts, which is why they were canceling tours early on, even before maybe the venues were ready to say, are you sure? Right. Because they weren't sure that they could travel together. Right. The way that they needed to be able to travel, right? We have, Bill Engvall can fly in on his own. Jerry Seinfeld can fly in. Right. But Tedeschi Trucks Band, that's not happening.
Not happening at all.
Right?
No way.
Right.
Yeah, that's, you would, it'd take, 15 different buses? If you were going to social distance people, you'd have to have 15 buses.
Right.
I will say that until all of this COVID stuff started, and people have probably heard me say it a million times, the scariest thing in the music business is a rumble strip at 3 a.m. When you're on the bus and you're like, is he asleep? What I mean? The bus driver is very important. Yes. And those rumble strip things. The guy I have in mind, Doc, and Doc, if you can hear me, what's up, buddy? I think Doc would hit the rumble strip for an extra long time just to see who was awake. Not cool. But no, it's definitely like, it's a scary time for everybody. I will give you some well-deserved props. Tammy immediately tried to figure out the Goldfinch room, and the Goldfinch room is a listening room at C.Y. Stevens. And when I say listening, like I've done many of the shows now, the crowd doesn't come to drink beer and talk while somebody else plays music. They come to listen to what the artist has to say. And you can hear a pin drop. It is a beautiful environment. And instead of going, oh, well, what do we do now? Tammy immediately got to work, moved it outside, and then did social distancing, put circles on the ground where you could have, 6 people in a circle, and sold tickets that way. And it was great. And not only was it good for the Goldfinch room, as branding, but the artist who got to play were like, thank God I get to play. Mm-hmm. Not talking about a paycheck, just like Matt Woods.
We weren't paying all that much.
He was sitting on the couch and he was like, I just want to play. And I mean, when you talk to Matt about music, you can tell in his blood there is something that he just has to be in front of human beings playing the blues. He's just got to do it.
Right.
It's what he's made of. And for him to have that opportunity in the middle of all of this, super cool. I mean, again, I know that you worked hard to get it done, but I'm not sure you really get how important it is to some of those people who were on that stage, the opportunity to be on the stage and to give that energy and to get it back, Right. Super cool.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that Goldfinch, had really set out to do was to kind of celebrate our Iowa singer-songwriters who who probably play a lot of dates, but maybe don't play in an environment like the Goldfinch where they're going to bars and people may or may not be listening. And,
right.
and it really is all about an appreciation of them and their art.
Right.
And I certainly knew that they were hurting, they're just like us. I mean, if there's no place to play, no safe place to play, then where can they go, and how are they supporting their families? Yeah. So, we're hoping to bring that inside and put it actually on the Stevens stage where we've got pods drawn out, and I think we're going to try to we had thought we were going to bring it in November, but then we actually got busy with events, of which we were supposed to, from November 12th to November 21st, we were supposed to have about 10 events in those days, and we got through this weekend fine, and then everything else canceled until Saturday. I mean, we even had a streaming show cancel because of the lockdown in England. We were going to do a Choir of Man, and they were going to film it. They were going to stream it at a pub in London. And they went on lockdown 2 weeks ago, and we still thought we could do it because they were inside the pub and they had work permits. Mm-hmm. But they even shut that down. So we're going to wait until January. They were doing a special Iowa show. They had a canned film they could have sent me, but that's not what we paid for and what we wanted and what our... So even the streaming stuff is getting shut down, which is just like, wow. So we are trying this streaming thing. I mean, again, we're looking for revenue. We're looking to bring content to people. I mean, at first when, I was watching Tedeschi Truck, TTV, every Thursday night, they were doing a different show, a taped show. But even they... I think that everyone thought it was going to be, 6 weeks. And now, 20 weeks later, we're still in it. So, it's, like you both, it's in my blood. I just can't imagine going and having to find a job in some other industry. So we're trying to do everything that we can. You mentioned International Association of Venue Managers. I'm helping with their advocacy efforts. We are advocating to Congress. I mean, gosh, in April and May, June, I had probably been on phone calls with at least half of the senatorial offices and probably a quarter of their House leadership, House offices. So we've been working that angle specifically to get publicly owned, which is what Stevens is, covered in some stimulus package. So Save Our Stages is out there too. You were talking about places closing, and they believe that 90% of independent music venues will be closing. And so I think there's a place in Des Moines that's already closed. Vaudeville Muse.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so but Noche's back, and they're doing kind of regular crowds. I don't know what Governor Reynolds' proclamation today will do to them.
Jeff was talking about that, and what's the BXK?
The new one near Drake.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, they're trying to do some stuff in there too with the social distance. What is it? XBK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ex-Brooklyn kid.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, but that's the one near Drake that just opened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So it just it's Jeff was saying that what they're trying to do there is Jeff has got NOLA Jazz Band.
Mm-hmm.
And NOLA Jazz Band has been a pretty big band for a long time. I mean, big in numbers of members.
People on the stage, right? Yeah.
And so they've skinned it back. They're doing all that they can to keep it going, and then they're playing in venues that will do social distancing and limit ticket sales and all of that stuff. And they've had some decent luck with XBK and Noche. And I know Max at Noche is, he's working real hard just to keep it open,
Right.
I mean, and again, like for people who aren't in it, and this is like, I just know like the studio itself. The studio has overhead and it doesn't go away, and you can call the bank all day and say, hey, but I don't have any clients because of COVID. And the bank's not interested. Like the bank, they just want the money, and I get it. Like it's that's their business as this is mine.
Right.
But all of these venues, when they close, and all of the studios close, and like, so you don't think I'm nuts about it. Southern Ground, owned by Zach Brown Band in Nashville, closed.
Right.
So it's not, John McBride at Blackbird, he has got a hefty note for overhead at that place. I think there's 6 different studios on the property. That's, it's not cheap to run, and he has a cast of folks on the payroll. So it's not just me that I'm saying, and it's not just Stevens.
Right.
It's our country that we're talking about, like from here to Texas to Maine, like all what we're feeling locally, it's nationwide, So I don't know. I would just encourage people. Save Our Stages. Is it saveourstages.org?
Yeah, it's if you do hashtag Save Our Stages, you can find it that way. It's NIVA actually, National NIVA Independent Venue Association. I think it's what theirs is. So they're really pushing for the more privately, the privately owned. 50. I don't know if they're so much into 501c3s. Probably some 501c3s are in that group as well. But Yeah, I mean, there's the Restart Act out there, so there's a number of legislation out there. So certainly in the venue industry, if you're out there and you want to, try to help artists and, people that work in the industry, in the music and live entertainment industry, getting support for another round of PPP would be great. Getting support for small SBA would be great. Making sure that there's funding for the arts going to NEA or NEH so those artists can apply for grants. Again, making sure there's an additional stimulus package for unemployment benefits, and that probably helps artists, more than anything, is making sure that they can qualify for unemployment as small business, as a contract, basically as a self-employed person, because there's really no unemployment benefits if you're self-employed. So making sure that language gets in there. We're fighting for. Our organization is fighting for all of that. We're fighting for something called the Restart Act, which will help us with the mitigation efforts that we're going to need, all the plexiglass, the extra PPP or PPE. Sorry, there's too many P's. The personal protective equipment, the sanitization. The cost of hand sanitizer is just skyrocketed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We're spending $800 a month in hand sanitizing.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but me and our producer Nick were having a conversation one day, and we were talking about microphones and how to sanitize a microphone, and like after all of the years of putting SM58s up in front of drunken singers who are spewing Budweiser all over your mic, you never really think about it, but then when you have a global pandemic, you're like, how do we clean a SM58? Yeah. It turns out that disposable mic covers. And so Nick found some disposable mic covers, and I'm not positive, but I think they wound up like 12, 15 cents a piece, something like that. And somebody, somewhere, is making a fortune on disposable microphone covers.
Right.
Who would have thunk it? Right. But we ordered some for the studio, and then we brought some to the Goldfinch stuff, and a couple of the people who were on the stage were like, hey man, this is super cool. And I'm like, here, I tell you what, just take a couple packs of these with you. You know what I mean? You feel like you're handing out safety condoms to singers. Like here, stay safe.
Yeah.
It's no, so I completely understand. And what I don't get in all of this is like the person who is selling the hand sanitizer, I get it. Like we're in a free market situation, right? But when it goes up like 600%, right, the price does, then remember that your price went up 600%, and then when it comes time to see Kelly Clarkson, because your daughter insists on going to see her,
right,
and the ticket is 600% more,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So we've covered kind of where we are, kind of what our options a little bit are for moving forward. If you had to say to people, just artist, small venue owner, studio folk, session guitarist, whatever it is, what would be your advice to, would it be call your congressman? What would it be to make, if you could devote 10 minutes a day to trying to make it better, what would you do in your 10 minutes?
Yeah, great question. So I am a strong believer of trying to take all the individual responsibility you can, and until there's more science and data to back it up, I would be wearing a mask everywhere, I would be washing your hands, and I would be maintaining your social distance. And then absolutely, I think as we have been asking our venues within IVM to contact their congressmen and women since end of March, beginning of April. And we continue to just say, I mean, I know it's old. I know you've called them before. I know you've talked to them before, but we have to keep the pressure up, because if they don't hear from you, they don't know. Mm-hmm. And so we have spent a lot of time in each state. And when we are in, we were concentrating on the people in the Small Business Committee. And obviously Senator Rubio is, he's the SBA guy on the Senate side. And Velasquez out of New York was the Republican out of New York, or Democrat out of New York on the House side. And then we were focusing on finance too, because they were writing rules and regulations, which could include, even though the legislation had been passed, how they read the legislation and developed the rules and regulations. So I would absolutely continue to do that. And then it's because we're not seeing anything out of the federal money. Any state you're in, you received CARES Act money from the federal government, and you need to find out where your state is putting it, and you need to chase the state money. Yes. We are doing that. There was a group of us performing arts venues last week who sent individual letters to the governor of Iowa, and because she gave out money to the movie theaters, she gave out money to the county fairgrounds, and it's like, we need to be in line. I mean, we need to raise our hand, and we need to make sure that she's hearing, and we all told stories. Mm. And so I would think your state legislatures as well now, I mean, they're going to be going back to work in January, at least in Iowa. So depending on where you're listening, find out what your state legislatures are doing. Mm. And, now, I mean, the reason some of the states had money was because they didn't use it all for PPE in hospitals. And now, of course, with hospital cases climbing again, some of that money may be gone. But, I think that we need help from, not only, individual citizens just taking care of business, but also from, we need some government assistance. I mean, everybody else gets it. Yeah. I come from a farming family, and the farmers got it when the tariffs went, so why they can't be supporting venues in the arts,
Well, I've brought it up several times. When they start talking about too big to fail and all of that, and Wall Street got the bailout, and it irritates me that Wall Street got the bailout, and then the people involved in the bailout that same year cashed $1 million bonus checks. And it's the same thing here. It needs bailed out. People need the assistance, but the difference between it's going to be you cashing a giant bonus check as you actually making a mortgage payment. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just hope that people will take it upon themselves to represent their self and their fellow artist in a way that we need to be loud.
Right. That's what I was saying. We just need to get louder.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Because me as an artist, which no one's ever heard of me as an artist, but that's probably because I'm loud. We need to be loud. Yeah. Absolutely. So...
and that's a good, Save Our Stages, Neva has done a nice job of getting artists involved. I mean, I know that IVM early on, we, somebody had a contact with Garth Brooks, and so we leaned on that, and Garth Brooks, via his lawyer, sent a letter to, the congressman in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I think it always makes a difference when you get a letter from Garth Brooks as opposed to getting a letter from Tammy Koolbeck, the chair of IVM.
Yeah.
So I do. If you have a voice, I would certainly use it. I think it's important all the way down to your local, your county level and your city level too. There's value to what we bring to society, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Sure. Well, Tammy, listen, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. Really good insight into some of where we are with this. For everybody out there, I've said this several times now, and if it's a broken record, then, it's a broken record. But normal is over. There is no normal anymore, and we should face that. And remember that none of us got in this business because we wanted to be normal anyway. We all have a artistic side that we bring to this. Tammy, although not a formal musician, we couldn't do what we do without Tammy having a passion for what she does. So we're all in it together. Let's forget about the normal part of it, and let's move forward and make sure that the arts continue on. And I would say, even to go out on a limb, this includes bass players.
And banjo players?
Let's not go that far.
And the producer has said no. No, so we jest because we can. But Tammy, again, thank you so much. And on behalf of a lot of the artists that we've had on, a lot of the people that I've worked with here in the studio, thank you for your effort at the Goldfinch Room. Just one, for having such a cool place, an intimate venue where people can actually do what they do, for a crowd of people who really appreciate what they do. And then thank you for your efforts to keep that going throughout a global pandemic.
Yeah.
So thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If people want to support what we're doing, how are we going to do that?
Well, watch the video. Hopefully they are at this point. Check us out on Facebook. Go to our website, artgames.com.
Mm-hmm.
Book some studio time.
That would be handy.
Get out there and be loud and proud and stand up for saving the musicians, saving the arts, creatives in general. I don't know. Leave us some comments. Like, subscribe, share it, tell all your friends.
Listen, if anybody's got any great ideas, leave a comment, and if it's something super cool, maybe we'll have you on the show and we can discuss it. And again, we just want to keep everything moving forward. So, thanks, appreciate it, Colby.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tammy. Keep up the good work, and maybe I'll see you Saturday.
Good.
So, all right. Thanks again, and we'll keep it going as long as we can. I feel like I'm on one of those pirate radio stations where they might shut us down at any minute.
We're still on the air.
Right, we're still on the air. We'll keep it going, y'all. All right. So, we good?
Yeah.
Downrange.
Downrange.
All right.